how to measure productivity. And
Uh-oh. Dun, dun,
so, Jamie,
dun.
what we've kind of talked about is there is a long list of items that we at Advantage consider to measure productivity and have an expectation of productivity. But those same measurements, almost to a T, are the same for how to determine your FTE need for your department. What do you have to say about that?
So I think at this point in my industry experience, I have seen about 6 different models, and it's just us, right? So we can be honest.
Yeah.
All of them are reverse engineered to justify whatever you have now. So no one is looking at it like, let's take an objective look at how many people we need based on our workload, because there's this fear that if we look at it objectively, maybe we get reduced or maybe we don't. But I think what we've seen and what we know is that when you look at it objectively, often you need more staff than you actually have. So it's actually like a catch-22. No one wants to vary from the formula that they're using. But I can tell you one thing, whether it's supervisors, managers, directors, I have yet to meet anyone who's 100% satisfied with the method that they're using.
I agree. And getting to an FTE. Okay, so let me show you this one article. I know there's a lot of information out there. So this one article that we found from Donna Swinson and Eddie Conklin in 2016. So, you know, not too long ago, I'm going to say, it still applies. All of these principles that both of them wrote into the Amy article about productivity all still apply. And some of them, it's a really good article, so I would reference it on, it's amy-bit.org. Just look up Donna Swinson and Eddie Conklin, how to measure productivity in sterile processing, okay? But so from that article, we got some really good information and notes about, okay, and we've said this for a long time when we started to determine FTE need, right? The real need is that what we found out was the operating room minutes were the thing that determined how many FTEs went in SPD. And that just made no sense to us because FTE need in sterile processing departments is actual hands to the work, right? Manual minutes. And then think about not just manual minutes, Jamie, but all the other things that we're doing when we get pulled away and low staff. And there is a long, long list that we have to consider for FTE.
So
You know,
I
get
kind
the
of
numbers you need.
So I kind of virtually know Eddie Conklin through some groups on LinkedIn, social media. We've actually had a long email thread because even though, so the article being 4 years old doesn't scare me because he's like 40 years ahead of everybody else
Still
anyway.
applies. Yeah, absolutely.
He came from a manufacturing perspective, and just to emphasize, what we're manufacturing is not specifically based on the surgical hours or even the surgical cases. What you see a lot is people trying to take broken systems and add their stuff into it. Like, okay, we're still going to do it based on surgical cases, but then we're going to figure out how many trays were used in that surgical case. And so what happens is, and think about this on a macro level,
I've seen that actually.
We end up not reducing trays or not reducing the instruments in trays because we're stuck in the formula. The
Right.
honest thing is that it's a whole separate project. It is a whole separate project to get to the right FT. The Amy article that is attached to was based on a subscription service that Amy had, or they may still have, that was kind of asking hospitals to feed into, and then you get classified with hospitals of similar size. But basically the jewel out of that program was the Amy intensity levels, right? And so what the project requires is for you to go through and look at all the trays that you're using and then rate them according to Amy intensity level. You know how they talk about Einstein talking about us using only 5%. of our brain, we're using less than 5% of our instrument tracking systems, because
True. That's
we
true.
could put this information in the tracking system. Specifically, we Advantage can put this information in tracking systems, but I don't want to derail the discussion there. But it's a project, and it's a project worth doing if you really want to get a true FTE evaluation of what you have. You would
That's
be
right.
fairly surprised in what you get, because one of the factors that Angie always looks at when she's looking at it, I'll let her turn it over, because it just blew my mind, because nobody in the industry is thinking like that. But we're so worried about the stuff that we don't get credit for, when in reality, if you have an instrument tracking system, you should get credit for it. You should know everything, how many trays, how many instruments are coming into decon, everything that you're processing for clinics. Peel pack should be worth this. Putting up instruments should be worth this. So I'm not going to pretend like it's easy, but it is worth it, because all that stuff that you're giving yourself some kind of magical fluffed up credit that's really based on the FTEs that you have now, it's worth something. And if you were to take the time to do the project, or contact a company that can do the project like we can, what you're going to find out is the numbers are going to be probably more favorable than you think. It's just a matter of, do you have enough people to do it right? So we get confused. Do we have enough people to do it the way that we've been doing before? Well, maybe, but you're not doing it. You don't have any quality audit program. But we don't have enough people to have someone check the high risk ortho neuro trays. Well, in that case, how can you inform the work?
Let's say you go in, Jamid, and you do your, the Advantage model for productivity or FTE in our audits and assessments. You actually deliver justified numbers to administration so that the manager can get support. If we're going in, we're not there to say, oh, you did this, look at that.
Right.
That's not it. That's not it at all. It is, let us come in and see so we can help you get what you need. We can be a voice and an advocate to administration for you. Sidetrack. That FTE is justified with the numbers, because we don't look at operational OR minutes. We look at manual minutes in sterile processing, but that's only on the technical side, right? You got a skill set from decontam, assembly, all the way to case cards, but then you're looking at peel packs. How many times did the guys answer the phone and have to run away from their tray? How many runners do you have to go pick up and deliver? Are you doing OR support if their supervisors is out? Are you short-staffed? All of these things considered. You're also looking at what you were talking about earlier, which is the work part of getting the FTE program going, which is determine your size of the amount of instruments and metal mass in every tray, and categorize them in category 1, less than 50, 50 to 110, whatever it is, and categorize them in your FTE recommendation, as well as the level of expertise and experience of your staff members. That is crucial to determine how many numbers you're going to get out.
That was what I was waiting for you to talk about, because that's like our dirty little secret. Like, we know that Michael does a great job in assembly, and we know that Shannon does the best job in sterilization. But I want to give a shout out to my buddy Gus Vargas, because he doesn't understand why we do this in SPD. But Michael is not going to work assembly every day, and Shannon is not going to work the sterilizer every day. So on different days, you have different levels of production and expertise, so that people don't get burnt out and we're rotating. And so that is a huge part of the consideration of FTEs. One of the advantages, and I hate to use the word advantage, pun intended or not pun intended, one of the things that, because we're a company that does OR and SPD, we're not tilted towards one side. We have several of us that have worked both sides, and we do these same staffing algorithms for the OR. And here's what we notice. when we do staffing algorithms for the OR, we have to have a charge nurse to run the desk, right? To run the board. So we don't include them in staffing. If we got 11 rooms, we never say, we just need 11 nurses. We say we need 11 nurses plus someone to run the desk, right? We need some runners to run the specimens. We're not including the manager in staffing. And we're definitely not including the guys in the center core in staffing. And we're not, so it's funny though, when we're calculating the FTEs for SPD, when we look at what their current calculations, sometimes the center core or OR liaison is in staffing for the SPD. They're not making any trades. You got the supervisors in staffing. You got the manager in staffing. Sometimes you have the educator in staffing. And none of those people, when we're doing our models for surgical services for the OR, are in staffing. So one of the things that we have to make sure of is that when we're doing our calculation for staffing and when we're advocating for sterile processing, we're using the same calculation methodology that we're using for operating room staffing, because you can't do it, you can't do it with 11 techs or 11 nurses in the OR. Who's going to relieve for lunch? So
the other thing, Jamid, is think about this. You know, we have designated roles in the operating room that, those positions are filled, right, most of the time. But we don't have those designated roles in SPD. An SPD tech could be the phone, the technician putting the trays together, the OR runner, the liaison, running stuff to the clinic, taking the phone calls. Like, there's no designated part for all of these other roles that need to be filled. And I see some supervisors are the inventory people as well. I mean, it's just, you know,
right.
You got a supervisor to run a shift, and all the jobs are not designated to a person. So when you're looking at FTE, not just productivity, but how to receive and get the numbers you need to write some job descriptions for OR liaison, a runner, and the runner can be the phone person, right? There's a hospital that we worked with in California, and they had a designated desk in SPD. Seriously, only one I've ever seen that had a phone team, and that phone team was the runner to the clinics and everywhere else all over the facility and the campus. It was awesome.
Well, you think about things like instrument coordinators, like someone is ordering the instruments and then they come in, how do they get married back to the tray? Because ultimately that tray that's on the missing cart is needed for surgery tomorrow, but the same person that ordered it is not necessarily the same person that puts it back together. You talk about some of the other functions as far as, okay, who's ordering the supplies for SPD? Who's putting those supplies up? Who's stocking the workstations? How are the workstations set up? Are they set up as efficiently? You talked about it before.
Do they have the tools they need? Yeah.
If I'm missing an instrument, how far do I have to go? All those things are a huge factor from a lean perspective of determining the right amount of FTEs. What we want to do, we want to hear from you. And if you don't have privy to it, this is a good time to ask that have that conversation with your supervisor or your manager or director, because even at this level, if you start thinking about it now before you get there, you might have more solutions. Which method are you using to calculate your FTEs? Are you using surgical hours? Are you using surgical cases? Are you using items processed divided by the hours? Are you using instrument tracking system based recommendations? What I've seen is, I don't know any hospital that's purely just using the instrument tracking information by itself. They kind of extract some of the information that they're needing to plug in out of the instrument tracking system. And my challenge to the instrument tracking system is, why can't you look at the stuff that we're doing and say, and have a recommendation? And so those are the kind of things that we can set your instrument tracking system up to make, to do some of that work for you. But what we want to encourage you, we want to get you guys on here to talk about what you use, how you like it, what you don't like about how you're calculating it, and how we can help, right? And
That's right.
It's not saying, oh, we're trying to sell you a product. It's really, let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the flaws. Let's talk about some of the good ideas. And then let's see if we can get to a point where we can justify our FTEs, and not have people like the person that's doing the runner, like the supervisor, like the manager, like the educator, including our daily staffing, so we can properly, because that's the secret thing. Like you might say, oh, we have 22 people. Yeah, but 4 of them are
Right, they're not working. That's
are the
right.
leadership group or working in the OR liaison. And there's nothing
Right.
wrong with those, but that means that you actually have 18 people trying to do the work of 22 people, or
And
whatever the
remember, it's a
number.
manual process, right? It's a
It
manual
is.
minutes. How many times, how many minutes, right? It's the little work you have to do before you get all this started. How many minutes does it actually take an experienced tech level 1 to do and decontam a certain tray versus a tech level 3 to decontaminate a certain tray? Same tray.
Counting,
Like
counting.
it really needs to be a time study. It is a project. If you're interested in it, we can help you through it. If you're the tracking system and you want some input on how to make your tracking, please give us a call, because we'd love to help increase that standard of care we're in. And we cannot wait to hear what I'm so excited about all the comments and the likes that we got last week. Jamid with Miss Sharon Greengolden jumped in our conversation for Joint Commission, and I just love this process, and I'd love to hear back. We all would love to hear from each other. Remember, we are a network of professionals and advocates for the patient and for sterilization, and we are the experts. So we should talk to each other, share. Let's get together and really grow this profession. So we can't wait to hear from you.
We can't wait to hear from you. We want you on this format. So bring your ideas. Feel free to email me. My email address is on the screen. Or when we share this on social media, send me a private message or send a public message, and we'll get you on here. So
awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.